everyone, and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. We've got a bit of a different episode for you this week. We're really excited, but first of all, for a little intro, I am joined by the one and only, it's Lecky Merrick. Lecky, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I have my fan on. You may not even hear it, but in case you do, apologies.
Lecky, not to tease the rest of the episode, but for the main part of this episode, you will not be present because you were ill. Can you just confirm that you are, in fact, alive and well?
I am feeling better, yes. I am here, I'm alive.
And it's your dog's birthday soon.
Well, no, it was Tuesday.
Oh my God, we didn't even celebrate. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, I celebrated.
Oh God.
She got lots of belly rub. She got like a little rabbit chew. She was very happy.
It was also your birthday the other day, but we'll cover that next episode. It's far less interesting than it being your dog's birthday.
Yeah, more important, yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me. As I say, it's a bit of a special episode, which we'll get into. But I thought for old time's sake, Lek, should we bring back an old segment?
Yes, I'm ready for some crumbs. I was thinking, like, it's been several months since my last confession, my last crumb session, if you will.
You know what? For the past few months, we have been living the crumbs, breathing the crumbs. Our life has been the crumb.
Yeah. We've been devouring cakes instead of crumbs.
Every day, every single day,
Yeah.
I felt like Bruce Bogtrotter in Matilda. Day in, day out. But we are back to the little crumbs like Hansel and Gretel, and we will follow them all the way into the woods because we are back in the wilderness weeks. But, you know, this is our home territory. So for the next few months, get comfy because every episode we'll be bringing you a little update like the olden days of last year.
Yeah.
When we used to have our little weekly segment.
Back to the wilderness.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back, Lex. So, a little bit deja vu. What have you got for us this week?
A delay.
A delay? No, surely not.
So season 4 was supposed to start filming in June, but it looks like filming will now begin in September and will conclude in April 2025. So we did mention in our past episode that they are going to be setting the season during fall. I still think they're going to be out there with the hair dryers melting snow.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
It's going to be a different season, so I wonder if they're going to start in autumn, like the story's going to start in autumn and set it through winter or something like that.
That could be exciting.
Because we always said that season 4 did have the opportunity to be different because the structure of each season has always started with the Bridgerton daughter debuting. We've got a gap now until Hyacinth. So they can play around with the timeline a little bit.
Yeah. Time jumps.
Who knows what's in store?
Yeah.
So filming beginning in September, hopefully. We'll see you in autumn. What else is going on, Lek?
If you are missing the show, make sure you're caught up on all the behind-the-scenes videos that have been released by Shondaland. There was recently a really beautiful one released called Nude Beginnings, Penelope and Colin. There was a great one of the Berkeley Square-inspired church dance. Yeah, it was really cute.
There's been some really beautiful ones, including where Nicola was like, they'll die together on the same day.
Yeah.
When they're 18, notebook style. I'm like, cheerful. A cheerful, if you're worried about what's going to happen to Polin post season 3, they'll be fine. They'll die together.
Kind of morbid. We've also received a lot of messages recently about the excerpt from Colin's journals that we discussed. I think in our reaction episode, we were kind of debating what it was about. Since then, we've poured over it in closer detail. I know some people believe that he is maybe thinking about Penelope on her presentation day there, but it appears that he's talking about a visit to a museum and gardens with potentially another woman, which, you know, isn't ideal, but he talks in the passage about missing home, and he talks about his siblings, Benedict and Gregory, and I believe Hyacinth as well, as if he's missing them, as if they aren't present. So we think that is an excerpt that he wrote during his travels.
And season 3 is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? With the behind the scenes, the little snippets we've been getting. What else have you dug up out of the caves? Can you dig out of a cave? Let's go with it.
Well, this was also from the New Beginnings video, I think. We got a little glimpse of the original market scene.
The OG market scene.
Yeah.
To Polin.
Yeah, they looked super cute.
And I think there was also a tiny excerpt from the script that you could kind of blearily make out that fans were trying to decipher. Like, they just, like, we were all gathering around the Rosetta Stone.
Yes. Yes.
Brushing away the hieroglyphs.
Yes. So we also zoomed in on this.
What a shock.
And it actually looks kind of similar to the new market scene. But in the original market scene, there's some references to riddles. Like Penelope is kind of like confused by the lesson she's receiving from Colin and says something to the effect of, she can't deal with more riddles. I'm paraphrasing because we couldn't make out everything.
Penelope getting mixed signals and riddles from Colin Bridgerton. Not our season 3. Surely not.
And then there's a reference to them in front of a bonnet stand. And he says, what was cloaked wrapped in yellow and full of charm. And she says, I do not know that one either. That callback, I think, to the riddles comment from earlier in their conversation. And he's like, that's when I first met you. Do you not remember? Yeah. And then I think she takes something from his hand and blushes. So there's some slight differences between the two scenes.
Rest in peace, OG Tedum scene. You'll always be in our hearts.
Yes. More interestingly, Esme Coy, who plays Miss Goring, she shared some photographs of a scene that she filmed from episode 2 with Luke Newton at Australia at the full moon ball, where she appears to be flirting with Colin. She's touching his bandaged hand at one point, which seems to be like a reference to the books, where maybe she's kind of fawning over him and angling for a dance.
Yeah.
And it seems like he rejects her offer of a dance, or maybe turns away from her to go potentially be with Penelope after he spies her across the room. So very sad that that was cut. That would have been very cute to see.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that Esme released that back in May. So as ever, we're on the case 2 months after the fact, everyone. But, you know, we will bring the crumbs to you whenever we find them.
Yep.
Months, years down the line.
In other news, Nicola is taking part in an online signing with Magpie Toys. Taking place in October of this year, you will be able to either select an officially licensed image, Funko Pop, or you can send in your own item to be signed.
Yeah, you can send in books. I think if, like, you already have the Funko, if anyone can figure out the day that these bloody Funko Pops have been released, please tell me.
We've been waiting for over a year.
I am trying to figure it out and everything says December and I'm confused.
Yeah.
Believe me, I am on the lookout for tiny plastic Colin with his tiny plastic emotional support curl.
Yes.
And there's 2 Penelopes. You don't know which one you're going to get. So
you don't know which one you're going to get? It's a mystery?
So how it works, Colin's Colin. Uh-huh. He's got his Funko Pop. And then Pen on her Funko Pop is the Four Seasons ball pen.
Yeah, I saw that one.
But there's something called, like, there's a variant of Penelope, and she's in her, like, season 1 Lady Whistledown, like, her yellow dress with her purple, like, cloak. And it's like a variant that you don't know if you're going to get or not when you order it. They do it sometimes where they have, like, special editions, and it's like, will you get the rare one or will you get the normal one?
Oh, that's really cute. Oh.
I don't know which one I'd want, though.
I'm not much of a collector.
I have found that I am like a Polin merchandise magpie.
I know you are.
It's like,
I just bought you a vinyl.
I'm not like this at all, but I just can't resist. I bought the bloody macarons. There's a box up there, the empty box.
Oh, yeah.
I just can't.
You just need a rug now. The rug.
Don't, because there was a point where I was going to get a rug. I think it's because we were starved for so long and they're like our little secret for so long. And then to like see them on things. Anyway, keep your eyes peeled and let us know if you spot them in the wild. I'm on the hunt.
In other cast news, Jessica Madsen and Sam Phillips are appearing at the Metro Comic Con in Melbourne this weekend on the 13th and 14th of July, which is today when we're releasing the episode. So get a move on.
As ever, we're on the ball. It's like, in other news, the news is happening now, so
yeah.
Continue. What else is going on?
Bert Seymour, our much beloved Lord Fife, will be playing the role of Octavius Caesar and Antony and Cleopatra at Shakespeare's Globe in London. The play will be running from the 4th of August to the 15th of September, and I believe you're trying to go with Veg.
Yeah, I'm trying to persuade her. I love a bit of Shakespeare.
You went to see Love's Labour's
Lost?
Yes, with Luke Thompson.
I thought you can say who I went to see it with. And I was like, I didn't go to see it with Luke Thompson. He's so with our good friend.
He wasn't performing that day.
No, I just thought I'll sit down. Sit this one out.
Yeah.
I love a bit of Shakespeare. You know, I love a bit of the Roman Empire. And who doesn't love seeing Bert Seymour playing a little bit of snaky role, ultimately?
Snakes. How fast do snakes move? I'm trying to find a segue to this next one.
They slither.
But are they particularly fast?
They're pretty quick.
Okay.
They're pretty quick on the toe. I was going to say they're pretty quick on their feet. I think they're slightly lacking.
I'm sorry, listeners. It's been a long day.
You know what? It's been a really long day. I don't feel great.
Oh, that's right. Obviously, she cut her hand open, and I was trying to help her troubleshoot, but I am deathly afraid of blood.
Guys, life advice from me. 2 unconnected events. Firstly, when you're putting knives into your dishwasher, blades down. Also, try not to slip when you are then walking near your dishwasher.
Yeah.
And I did what I always do when my life goes wrong, which was message you in a panic and expect you to fix it from across the sea.
She had no bandages, so I was Googling solutions while going like this, waving my hands because
She didn't want to think about it.
she was sending me voice messages about blood and the meat of her hand. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
I always message you when I injure myself gravely.
Yeah, bleak. But a bit faster than snakes. Cars, Simone Ashley has joined the cast of F1, the Formula One racing film that will also star Brad Pitt.
Not quite a carriage, but, an acceptable form of transport nonetheless. Yeah. And this is going to be a very carriagey episode. So,
yes.
Put the wheel down, get your horses, we're going for a ride.
Put the driving wheel down.
Wheel?
Oh, you're in a car.
Yes. I don't have a driver's license.
Take your foot off the brakes, leap out of the car, get into the carriage.
Or off for a ride.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect way to introduce today's episode. As I say, it's a special one. We're really excited, aren't we, Lek? Today is the first time we will be having a guest on Water Barb. Can you believe it?
Super exciting.
Now, listeners, I am sure you all will be familiar with today's guest and their work on season 3. Lecky, who is our guest for today.
So we have Archer Marsh, the composer of the covers that we saw in Bridgerton season 3 for Give Me Everything, Confident, and Lights.
Absolutely. And we have all had those covers in our heads for, what is it now? Nearly 2 months?
And I've been listening to this song, Give Me Everything, almost on repeat the past couple of days. So it's been stuck in my head for days now. So yeah, I'm very excited for this episode.
So Beans and I sat down a couple of weeks ago with Archer Marsh and we chatted about Archer Marsh's journey in music and a little bit of the behind the scenes as to how those covers made their way onto the soundtrack. We talked about the impact that they've had because they have taken the world by storm, especially Give Me Everything. So we had a chat about all things covers, all things music in season 3 and it was great. And we really, really hope you enjoy the episode. We know it's a little bit different.
He also had some really insightful remarks about creativity and creating music and works of art, so we hope you'll enjoy.
So we will now pass over to Past Me, and we'll see you a little bit later. Enjoy! Hello everyone, Obs here. We are so excited today to welcome the one and only Archer Marsh onto the podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You're actually the first guest that we've ever had on What a Barb, and we couldn't be happier to have you.
Oh, I'm the first guest. I'm very honoured.
Usually we have another 2 co-hosts. It's just the 4 of us rattling away to one another. So,
well, where are they?
One is very ill and the other's on her way to Canada.
Oh.
The little black square that says What a Barb, she's curled up somewhere in pain.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully you get better.
They can't wait to hear everything, so they're thrilled to have you as well. But we're just sort of representing the team today.
Oh, good.
And just to introduce ourselves a little, our podcast is a celebration of all things Bridgerton, and our listeners are some of the biggest fans of the show, as you'd imagine, especially of season 3. They've been very, very excited for the season. Here on the podcast, we focus especially on Penelope and Colin's story in particular. And as I say, many fans have been waiting a really long time for their love story to unfold on screen.
Yeah.
But here on the podcast, we've also really always been interested in the behind the scenes side of things too.
Absolutely. Bridgerton is an incredibly detailed show, and we're always in complete awe of how much time, care, and thought goes into making the world, especially from creatives such as yourself. So it's very exciting to speak to you today about your music and how important it has been in creating the world of season 3.
Great.
So to have you here is just wonderful.
Yeah, we're very honored.
Great. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
To begin with, we would love to know more about your journey in music and composing, especially for TV and film. How initially did you get started?
That's probably a long, boring story. It's long and it's not an instant thing. It's evolves over time, and you can probably thread it back to certain moments. But really, I was just a bit of a hustler, and I've always been a bit of a hustler. And when I was 16, my sister used to nanny for a TV producer who did a lot of the BBC panoramas and dispatches for Channel 4 and the current affairs documentaries. And I just hounded him until he gave me a sympathy job. And, and then I quickly realized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. So I went to college and bummed around a little bit. I went to university in London, but literally to get me into London.
Yeah.
Nothing against academia, but I wasn't a fan of it. But the London, at that time, I still had a grant. They would still give me grants to go to university. So I kind of utilized that and then hustled in the music industry whilst doing my degree.
Yeah. get that.
Yeah, I mean, I did a degree, but I wasn't the best student. I mean, while my English A level was going on, I was down the pub. So it was when my final exam was happening, I was it was a pound a pint back in those days as well. So it was pretty.
Things have changed.
Yeah, it was good. And I don't mean to be disrespectful about academia. It's just that I'm always much more of a practical learner. So
yeah, honestly, same.
So I think that was, it's just been job by job. I've worked in the commercial industry writing songs and artist management and had record labels, but slowly decided after a long time of producing artists and songwriters and having management labels, I realized that really the only person that valued my money was me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I started booking orchestras and just having fun and then teaching myself, and just went and experimented and slowly clawed my way through the TV and music and the film industry. So it's been a bit of a journey. That was probably a boring old waffle, but there's nothing really exciting to say. It's just been a long evolution of hammering away, and I'm still hammering away.
Yeah, I personally respect that as well, because I also work in commercial music, and it really is a very tiring, long process working with, like you said, different management companies, different artists. I write for artists as well, so it's also one of those things too where when you're making music and then a project that you're working on doesn't get used and you're like, oh, I worked on this for so long and then it's been scrapped and everything. So I totally get the hustle lifestyle, because I've been there. I'm in the middle of it.
Well, I think 90% of my career has been failure. So it's like the 10% has to just be the good stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
But that's okay. I think, you have to learn to fail. I know that's such a cliche, but I love the phrase fail forward, so whatever you fail with, you just learn and you go again. And the problem is with the creative industry is that there's an attachment to what you do, because it's you take it personally initially and there's an ego. And so you think whatever you write is better than the other people pitching for the job and you should get it. And eventually you just kind of let that go and you just put enough out there. And if it comes back, it's great. If it doesn't, it's okay. It's not actually a reflection of your music.
Exactly.
Because there's so many contributing factors that come together in alignment to create that, whatever you call it, success or not, Yeah. And success is a big word, and I'm happy to talk about that as much as you want, because I love talking about that. But, I use the word success very carefully, because most people attach success to some kind of monetary value, and it's not always the case.
Yeah, especially in the creative arts. And it's like you say, it's easy to talk about success, but failure is quite difficult for people to talk about. And I don't think we celebrate and talk about it enough.
No.
And that failure is still momentum moving forward.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I've said on a recent interview that I did that sometimes you have to be told that your music isn't good enough. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
You have to be told that. And because this is the media industry and it's tough. It's tough. Some people, I always talk about this. Some people get it very easy, and some people who are super talented never see the light of day. But most of us are in this grey area in the middle, which involves graft and hard work and,
right, a lot of hustling.
There's always going to be the anomalies that you can pinpoint. Well, this guy just did this movie and blew up, and we all know people who are super talented that are not getting where they deserve to be.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky thing, but it's the relentlessness that wins.
Very insightful.
Yeah, it's like what you said about education. Not everything works for everyone, the same path. And sometimes when you see someone else walk a path, you think you have to walk the same path. But actually, you have to go different ways, or it doesn't open the same way for you.
So I talk to a lot of young composers. I have 6 on my team, and we always are talking about, I love the mindset thing. I think mindset is the key to everything. And I think, giving into the outcome and just being prepared to fail opens you up to be brave. And when you're brave, you're much more creative without restriction. So when you're brave without restriction, you're much more likely to come up with good stuff,
Yeah.
And it's the letting go, because if you're chasing the money, if you're always chasing the right bit of music for the right show or the right artist, usually you're behind. So by the time everything's heard it, you're like a year behind. So actually you've got to create your own voice, and that's one of the hardest things to do, because I'm so used to working for brief. I've had briefs for 30 years. So when I want to write a piece of music that's me, I'm suddenly like, oh, wait a minute. What does that even mean? What do I like? So it's a tricky process, but I think just giving yourself space is the key to everything. Creating space. Creativity comes in the space that you create. Most of us don't create that space because we're too busy focused on the outcome. And if you just let go of that a little bit, there's a gap that happens. And in that gap is where the fun is. And where the fun is, true creativity comes. Yeah. So it's really hard. It's really hard to, and it sounds patronizing and condescending to talk about the fact that it's not about the money, especially when there are people that are suffering financially. And it doesn't, I don't mean it condescendingly, but if you let go of the outcome of financial gain, what you'll do is far more creative and unrestricted.
And it has authenticity.
Yeah.
A lot of people who listen to us are so invested in the creative arts, and I feel like it translates over loads of different mediums. Speaking of the sort of projects that you've been working on, in 2022 you released your album Sequins. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, by the way.
It's a hard one because it looks like sequins.
It does. That was my initial instinct.
Yes.
It's actually sequins. Yeah, sequins. It sounds it's just a fancy way of saying sequence, but it means to come afterwards. So that's what it is. I can't remember the language, actually. I think it might be Latin. That's terrible of me.
If we figure it out, we'll do an insert.
Yeah.
That was the album that featured orchestral covers of well-known songs, including the 3 that will be very familiar to our listeners.
Yeah.
So what initially drew you to that project and drew you to creating classical compositions or neoclassical compositions of these modern tracks?
Yeah, it was working with BMG alongside doing this idea. We had this idea to kind of come up with some orchestral versions of existing bangers, really. And I think that it was Ali Pistoresi at BMG, I'll just give her a little shout out because she deserves it, that came up with the idea. And so it was kind of a no-brainer. I love doing that stuff. I've got a background in trailers and promos, and we do a lot of reinterpretations of existing tracks. So it's something that I'm pretty familiar with. So to take that and then strip it down, originally on the Spotify, you'll see on the album, there's the fuller versions and the stripped down versions as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're kind of designed for different things, but we thought the stripped down versions worked really well, so we wanted to put those out on their own.
And those are the ones that ended in the show.
Correct. Yeah. So they weren't originally designed for that, funnily enough. So we, just because the stripped down versions worked, we put those separately as alt versions. And that's the one that the showrunner of Bridgerton found after being pitched them by BMG, and then showed them to all the execs at Bridgerton and Netflix, and everyone fell in love with it, which is fantastic. Yeah. Was
this the moment when Archer Marsh was formed as a name? Because as I say, we're a fan of pseudonyms over here.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you the honest truth if you want.
Go ahead.
I write under a lot of different names. It's a weird industry, the creative industry. When you can do a lot of different things well, people get confused by that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's nice to compartmentalize it. So this is this, and rebrand it. So I discovered came up with the brand Archer Marsh because it's a brand really it's an artist pseudonym that we want to build on and wanted to build on for this specific type of music. And it doesn't sound very glamorous. And because I've got so many pseudonyms, I asked AI for some pseudonyms, and I went through a load of them, and then I saw Archer Marsh, and I thought that sounds like he would play a violin, When
we were coming up with the name of the podcast, we went through that. We threw every possible name combination for the podcast out. It took a really long time to settle on. Yeah. So we get you there.
Yeah. It's probably, I like removing the smoke and mirrors sometimes. It's quite fun because everyone has an idea about how all this stuff is organized, and there's it's like this kind of unknown organization that has it all sorted and it's all figured out and it's all working seamlessly, but fundamentally we're just all making it up as we go along. That's the reality.
Yeah, it's like the romanticization of hard work when actually sometimes it's just hard work.
It's just hard work, and it's no more glamorous than a pseudonym AI search, and we can paint it. I can pretend that it was more exciting than that, but it really wasn't.
It's the name of my great-grandfather.
I think Archer's a great name. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
It is a great name. If you wanted to give it a pizzazz, you could just be like, "Oh, my grandfather fought in the big war."
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I got it from.
Well, my granddad actually did fight in the First World War, but he was His name was Ronald. So
Yeah, Ronald Marsh is a little bit of
doesn't have the same
doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
In terms of the songs on the album and the process of that, when you're taking a modern song that's really well known, what are you hoping to capture or evoke in your own interpretation of the song? What's that process like?
For me, I think it's really important. You can't just do it note for note. It never works. It just
Yes.
sounds like a pastiche or like this kind of weird karaoke version, or like they used to do those rock covers you probably don't remember, in the 80s. They used to have now they used to have like our full albums of classic rock, like rock interpretations of classical music and stuff. And I don't know, there's a cheesy element to that. So if you just take a melody and do it, note for note, it doesn't work.
Right.
It just sounds like this pastiche. But so what I like doing is taking the elements of it. So you understand, you go, what? I think I know what that is. But you're not quite sure. You're like, wait, is that? I like that. And then you give the release, the moment of which, oh, it is that.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is the fun part of it. So it's taking like the verses, and not taking verbatim the melody. It's just applying it. That's where the fun for me is, because then you can have a bit of fun. It's like, I like the edginess of what we do with those things. It's not traditionally classical. It's kind of, there's an edge to it.
Right, yeah. It's a fusion.
Yeah, a fusion of just kind of more attack, more attitude with the stuff, rather than this polite classical. Yeah.
They really do have personality to them. I think they create their own world within the music. And it's 3 of those covers, Give Me Everything, Confident and Light, that ended up being used in Bridgerton season 3, which is perhaps the biggest show of the year. So, no big deal there or anything, nothing.
It's gone a little crazy, yeah. Yeah.
Before we jump into the songs themselves, we'd love to know more about how things unfolded from your perspective. Could you maybe share a little bit more about who reached out, when they reached out? What's that process been like?
All I knew, honestly, was that BMG informed me that they were pitching the tracks to Bridgerton. And I don't think anything of that, because I have tracks, I don't mean to sound weird about it, but I've got tracks out all over the place, like being pitched. So you kind of like, okay, it's going to be in the show. That's fantastic. You think it's going to be in the show. In my mind, it's a bit of background music. Maybe there'll be a sync fee. That's kind of it. So they said that it was going to be pitched. And then I got confirmation a few weeks prior to the show that it was going to be in the show, but we didn't know. They didn't tell us what scene or whether it was a big scene or a little scene. As I said, most of the time it's just, oh, great. It's just another bit of music used in background. So when it was used in that scene and it just exploded, that's when it was a surprise to everyone, because it was literally overnight. It went mad.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, it really did. So when it comes to Bridgerton, music feels as much as part of the storytelling as the script, and the costumes and set design. The orchestral covers of modern songs have become an inextricable part of the identity of the show. What do you think about the power of music in telling stories, both in media and in everyday life?
Well, I think music has a way of attaching itself immediately to your emotion, and it's difficult because it means so many different things to so many different people.
Yes.
Depending on, you might hear a song and it might remind you of a breakup, or it might remind you of the best holiday you've ever had. So instantly you go back and you can create those memories again in your head. So it has a weird way of doing that. Like, I can listen to a song, I can listen to a bit of Elton John, and I'm 14 again, in my mind. I'm back there. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of creating that emotion. And in media, it's a kind of complicated thing, because in my kind of, talking like an old moany old man from, there's a lot of kind of whitewashing of music within media these days. So it's like, wall to wall. And if you listen to the old school composers like John Williams or, the Alan Silvestris, they understand space and quiet and moments. And it's a bit like the study of structuralism, which is the study of and semiotics, how words have meaning because of the words that surround the other words. Words on their own don't mean very much, but they have context because they're surrounded by a load of other words. That's the same thing in music. If you have one chord, it doesn't mean anything, but you precede that with a load of stuff that builds to that one chord. Suddenly that one chord is vitally important. So for me, that's the stuff that I really love being able to do, to create emotion, to be able to understate and underpin what's going on screen, rather than just the wall-to-wall stuff, which we do as well, because we've done a lot of trailers and, the big stuff. But I love being able to pull back and create emotion. That's my favorite thing.
And that is definitely something you did in the show throughout all three scenes that your music was used in. But of course, the carriage scene is something that has captured the imagination of many, especially the fans of the show. The fans themselves, including ourselves, we've always known how important music is in Bridgerton. It's almost a character in its own way, the way it's been used. And we all spent a really long time theorising about which covers would appear in season 3 because we really felt it was an important part of that storytelling, especially for the main love story. Don't worry, this isn't when the Bridgerton quiz is going to kick in.
Yeah. I know. I'm suddenly starting to sweat.
But one huge moment that the fans had always been speculating about was the carriage scene itself, because from the books from 20 years ago, it's such a well-loved part of the story. And it's really an important turning point narratively too. And Bridgerton showrunner Jess Brownell described this moment as years worth of friendship coming to this giant crescendo. So no pressure, but it was this moment that really, really meant something to fans, and it was really going to be this centerpiece of the show.
Yeah.
I believe that the music director, Justin Camps, he initially compiled the playlist of covers, including your work, and he showed that at the beginning of production, and it was your cover of Give Me Everything that stood out straight away for this particular scene. And I think what is so perfect about the cover, especially from the perspective of people who have been so heavily invested in this love story for a very long time, is that it just perfectly portrays this incredible build-up of emotion in that scene. There's such history in that moment. It's not just sort of this flat moment of passion or anything like that. It's hugely evocative, it's hugely layered. And your cover really helps create this vulnerable but hopeful and then ultimately euphoric moment as Polin confesses his feelings for Penelope. And Justin Camps again said that your cover captures the anticipation before it becomes an explosion. And I think that's such a perfect way to explain what you've created in that song.
Oh, that's great. I like that. Thanks. Can I write that down? I could use that as the bio.
I'll send you the script, don't worry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
But what you find is that the music really carries them through this passionate but very character-driven sequence to the point where you could now never pull those moments apart. You could never pull that moment in the story away from... I feel like your song created a world for them in that moment, which narratively was so important. So how does it feel to have your cover be such an important part of that storytelling moment?
Well, I didn't realise what kind of an army the Bridgerton fans were.
I know, right?
Apologies.
I mean, I'm so glad to be on the good side because I don't know what would happen if I was on the bad side. But you know, the support that we've had, about those tracks has been amazing, and the social media, which I'm not an expert on at all, but I've had to learn pretty quick.
Yeah.
I haven't even been able to work out that Bridgerton filter thing. I was going to do that, and every time I did it, it would mess up. So I need someone younger than me to help me do that. But it was really a privilege to be part of that. It's always exciting when something like that happens because it also came out of the blue. It was like, wait, that's, BMG were like, you need to set this up and it's going to go crazy. I'm like, I've heard all that kind of stuff before, So it was fantastic. I really enjoyed the kind of responses that we've had to that. And also, I think the fact that the track was called Give Me Everything is pretty powerful as well.
Yeah.
Considering what she got.
Yeah.
Well, indeed.
I guess she didn't get quite everything, but she got most things.
Yeah, she got enough.
She got enough. She got enough. And I have seen that scene, and it's really cool. And I think because it was such a big moment, obviously I didn't realize that it was that moment was such a huge build up to that moment. And I think the use of that track outside of the fact that I did it was really clever. The way that they paused and then,
Oh, it's so perfect in creating that atmosphere.
Yeah.
We also have to give a huge shout out to Confident and Light. Lecky, who is currently curled up in a ball from pain. One of her favourite moments in the entire season is Cressida's entrance, where Confident is playing. Because we knew, I think a few days before part 2 came out, found out the songs that were going to feature. So the list came out. And so we were there trying to sort of pin together what moments these songs are going to be used at.
Yeah.
But then when we saw Confident being used, it's such a powerful track. And that moment, it just was brilliant. And then Lights as well comes at this really celebratory moment towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
Big fans of both of those as well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, but Give Me Everything has...
taken the world by storm.
Absolutely.
That's the one. It's funny because I saw the actors on the Jimmy Fallon show and I don't know if you saw the clip of him like, trying to get away from the music. Yeah,
Oh, get away from it. Yeah.
it was, that was quite funny. So I wonder how they feel because that music's haunting them every time they hear that.
I know. I mean, speaking of the virality of it, it's just, as you said, the sensation across social media. And the track has been, I don't know if you know this, but the track's been streamed like over 14 million times on Spotify alone.
Yeah, that's going up. Yeah, we've had 1.8 billion views on TikTok.
Wow. TikTok has really captured it, hasn't it?
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, Instagram's slower. Instagram kind of catches up.
Yeah, they're a week behind always.
Yeah, it is, but it's still going. I think, especially in foreign territories, because I get a lot more German fans. So I think it might have just gone out in Germany. Maybe it was a week later or something. But
yeah, I mean, how has that felt from your perspective to have this just incredible, like, viral moment? Like, how has it been for you specifically? Yeah,
it's been amazing. I got a free coffee last time I was in Windsor. A cafe asked me to go in and have a coffee there. So I think I'm up on the deal. I got a coffee and a croissant for free. It was awesome.
From Windsor as well. That's worth a lot. I used to live that way out.
you're living large.
I know. That was like £50 worth of coffee. So that was fun, but no, it's kind of alien to me. I'm normally behind the scenes, I'd like to keep myself in a dark room and not see anyone usually. So this has all been kind of new to me, but it's been a good experience. It's been really nice. I have to stay away from the comments because you can go down a rabbit hole with that. What's really funny is it made me laugh. It exposes human weakness, that stuff, because we get 6,000 great comments, and then there's one that's, what's he doing? He doesn't know what he's doing, and I'm like, oh no.
I know.
And when you're putting so much of yourself into a piece of work, which is inevitable with anything creative,
It exposes. You think you've done all the work and therapy, and then you suddenly realize that you're like,
I know.
oh no, I've still got work to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not a conductor for a start, so I'm literally just standing in front of musicians having fun. You could ask the musicians, Jono, who's the violinist, he's a great guy. He would say he needs me there for the energy of that stuff, the live performance, and I can do that. I can get the performance out of it, but I'm not a conductor. I've got a very good friend who's been a conductor for 40 years, and he's done all my live sessions. He's a conductor. He's the guy I get in for my orchestral sessions.
Yeah.
But I'm not a conductor. I'm just having fun. But no, it's been an experience for me, and definitely it's kind of opened up a few more things I've got to work on.
Close TikTok for a second. Forget those. We're talking about the real critics here. What has been the response from your family and friends? We saw a really lovely reel with your children, I believe.
My kids, yeah.
The true critics, how have they taken it?
They don't care. They don't care at all. They just want me to play Fortnite.
Totally unimpressive.
Can you get off TikTok and play Fortnite now, please? That's basically what it is. They don't really understand it, and they don't really care, and I love that. And my family, my brother just wants to put me back in my box, in his words. So he's 8 years older than me. He's like, do we have to call you Archer? And everyone else has been pretty positive, I think. Not many people know, I think, because I haven't told everyone, but some people have found it. Like I think I must have come up on their feed. I go, wait, is this you?
I know that person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun right now, and we're just kind of riding the wave of it and seeing how it progresses. We're doing more music and putting more music out there, which will be very soon. And there's several big named artists that have approached me to do covers of their work as well, which is fun, which we're doing the deals for at the moment. And I'm doing a Netflix show on the rooftop for them, just to say thank you for having us. So we're doing a rooftop performance of all the tracks that were in the show with the quintet. So that'll be really fun as well.
Amazing. We were going to ask you what's next, but you sort of addressed that. If you want to talk about any other projects you're doing, that would be great.
I'm scoring a couple of movies. We're always working on trailers. We've just done the Wicked trailer. That was the latest one that dropped.
Oh, cool.
Oh, we're big Wicked fans.
We've done all the Loki and the Ashoka stuff, and we're doing very busy in that respect. So we're always scoring. Yeah, working on more Archer Marsh material, getting that recorded this week.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of my day job, really. I've been doing this for 30 years. I have a music production company, and as I said, we've got 6 people involved in that. And there's another company I consult for. There's 12 composers in that, so I oversee creative on that stuff. It's a busy time. I'm backwards and forwards to England a lot. That's really my social calendar.
Well, one final question before we let you go. For anyone who is passionate about music and composing, but maybe doesn't know how to break into the industry and how to keep on going, what words of advice would you give them as someone who's hustled his entire life and found his way here?
I get asked this a lot, and my advice I always think is kind of irrelevant in a way, because my path is never going to be the same as other people's path. And I think there might be some things that people can take inspiration from or modify their own thing with, but really it's about mindset. The mindset is the key to it. It's not about anything else other than your approach to what you're doing. If you get that right, then everything else starts to fall into place. It's not about necessarily even your music or who you know. It's about your mindset and your willingness to fail and your beginner's mindset. You know, there's a great quote that the experienced mind has few possibilities, but the beginner's mind has many, you know. So whatever you do, you should approach it from that perspective, I think, with an openness to learn. And I have young assistants, and if I'm walking past the studio and they're doing something cool, I want to know what they're doing, because I want to learn, I want to grow. So it's not about, well, I've been doing this longer than you and I employ you, so I don't need to know. It's about sharing of information and that letting go and opening yourself up to what's possible. And I think, you know, we can talk about manifestation or abundance or gratitude, but really all of that stems to opening up and letting go. You know, we all cling so tight to the idea of what it is that we want, and so you're very narrow-minded, and actually your thought process can become linear in that respect, because you're chasing something in a funneled environment instead of opening yourself up, doing your best work, being a nice person to deal with, being easy to deal with, and just being relentless about that. You know, there's a great book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and he talks about the way to get out the fight. So say you're in a tug of war with an army troop or whatever it is, a platoon of people. Imagine they're your issues, you know, and it's just you on the other end with a tug of war. How do you win? You let go of the rope, you know, you give in, you give up, you let go of the rope. And it's something I preach to my team all the time. Let go of the rope, you know, stop fighting. Because when you're fighting, you blink at yourself. And what are you fighting for? You're fighting because of some sense of fear or proving. And actually, when you got to lose that, it doesn't matter. You got nothing to prove to anyone, not even yourself, all because we punish ourselves for the things that we feel we should have done or we could have done better. You know, you've got to let go and just go, okay, the eternal present, if you want to look at it in a kind of woo-woo LA fashion, it's the eternal present. All you've got is right now. And that's, you can just do your best in this moment. If it's not as good as you can do tomorrow, that's okay. Do it better tomorrow, whatever. But we punish ourselves so much about this failure or not being somewhere or not doing our best work or not being the best person we can or failing or being miserable one day or shouting at someone in the street. It's all right as long as you let go of it. You know, it's this constant beating up of ourselves that we do that is the danger. So that's a long-winded way of saying let go and give in and just do your best work. Because when people send me stuff, the thing that's going to speak is the music. So you just got to do your best work. If you do your best work and ship it, there's another great book for creatives called The Practice by Seth Godin. Anyone who's creative that wants to understand that process, he talks about just shipping it, doing it, shipping it, doing it, shipping it. And there's no such thing as writer's block in his mind. He says, show me your bad writing. You just sometimes got to get through it all, you know. Sometimes I'm guilty of it as well. I'll sit down and I'll write something and I'm, okay, that doesn't work. I'll go and have a cup of tea or do something else or whatever. And actually, that's not the fix. You've just got to work through it. It's a bit like working out. It's miserable at times, but the results are worthwhile. And it's the same thing. It's a practice. It's a muscle. I mean, this comes down to success. You know, you can talk about how do you get started, but it's not about how you get started. It's about what your goal is. What is it that you want to achieve? Most people talk about success and don't have any understanding of what success truly means to them. One person's success is here. This is not good for your podcast. But then another person's success is 10 floors up. And there's no judgment on that. But our success is always measured by other people's lives. And that's, you know, another social media thing, I think.
Absolutely.
So, you look at someone else, and no matter where you are, a good friend of mine, he always says, how good you're doing depends on who you ask. And it's such a valid statement, because you could be doing great compared to someone, then you go and speak to someone else, and in your mind, you're not doing very well. But what is it that you're comparing yourself with? Who are you proving to to. So once you start unpacking all that and talk about what success truly means to you, what it is that you're trying to achieve, then you've got a much more concise way of approaching it, rather than, oh, I just want to be wealthy, or I just want my music to be on a movie, or, okay, great, but for what reason? What are you chasing? Is it to fulfill you? Is it to validate you? Because if you're doing it for that reason, then you're always going to fail. You know, if you're looking at external validation, you're always going to fail. So, and by the way, I'm no guru at all this. This is just stuff that I'm practicing myself. You know, understanding what success means to you is vital, absolutely vital, whatever it might be, because then you've got something to work towards and you can set yourself targets rather than this judgment of yourself because you're not where you think you are, even though you don't really know where you want to be.
I mean, I think to add on to that, and something that's held me back for years before pursuing my own career as well, is like that fear of failure really does hold you back, because it's so, you hold so much importance to how everybody else is going to react to you, when really you have to let go a little bit of that control and allow yourself that failure, as you said, to fail forward. So if anything, give yourself this space to create things that you hate, create things that you love, because all of it is going to be a learning process that propels you into eventually whatever goal you have for yourself.
You have to create space, and that space, when you create it, it allows you to reflect on yourself. It gives you breathing room. Within that breathing room, you can be creative. You know, you let yourself off the hook a little bit. That's when the gold happens. You know, there's a push and a pull with creativity, and you have to allow that. But usually what happens for me is, if I'm trying to be creative, there usually comes a sticking point of which it suddenly becomes hard and I can't find it or whatever. And I use an analogy that I have a little place in the mountains, and I go up there and I try and be creative, and it's quiet and it's spacious. I've got a studio there and I just disappear because it's my creative space and there's nothing there to distract me. So I go up there. The problem is with that is there's an expectation that what I'm going to create is going to be fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, you come back with something.
Yeah. And often I've sat there and nothing's happened. And well, what happens is exactly this. So I was there at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 4 in the afternoon, nothing's happened, still a blank screen. And I'm like, well, whatever, I'm going to go and make my dinner and go to close the laptop. And I'm just fiddling around as I go to close the laptop, and I find a sound. And then that sound is the sound that created the track that I was looking for. The reason I found it, or was open to seeing it, was because I let go of the expectation of finding it.
Yeah.
The moment I let go of the expectation to find it, I found it. But sometimes you have to, it's like showing me your bad writing. You have to have that rub, that friction, in order to create the spark. The struggle and giving up, there's a gap. And in the space between struggling and giving up is the space that we create to allow ourselves that creativity.
Yeah.
And I think none of us do that enough. We don't give ourselves the time and space, and we berate ourselves for not doing creating a masterpiece every time we sit down.
I love writing, and I've so often in my life been paralyzed by the blank page, because you have an idea in your head of what you want it to be. And it's the fear of putting that onto paper and it not reaching that paralyzes you from even beginning. But if you don't begin at all, then you have nothing to build on or work from. So
sometimes if I'm up against it, if I'm scoring to a deadline and there's nothing in front of me, the equivalent to your blank page, I will just start throwing things. Even if I don't like them, I go, I like that, I'll put it in. I like that, I'll put it in. Because funny enough, at the end of the day, you suddenly got a piece of music that wasn't there before. Because it's like having a lump of clay. You know, you can't carve it, or whatever the word is to clay, until you actually have the clay in front of you. You have to have something in front of you to start carving away at it. So sometimes just chucking everything in. And my advice to you, not that you need my advice, but my advice when you have a blank page is just write nonsense. Because after page 3, you'll find it, and stuff that you wouldn't have written if you hadn't have written the nonsense.
Yeah, I think stream of consciousness practices, because I've done that for writing songs as well. I'll just like come up with one idea and then just add it to another song that I'm doing, you know? Yeah. And that's such a fun way to create, because you can find a little bit of gold within that. Because, bro, I've written some clunkers.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's funny, but people have this illusion that everything you write and you have a bit of success or whatever, it's good. It's really not. I've written some terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, it's like that's what led me to do this. And being objective about your own work is a very, very crucial thing, you know. Be able to select all and delete is powerful. So, yeah, I think, you know, circling back to how do you do it, it's about opening up. It's all there for you. You just have to open up. People talk about abundance and manifestation and the secret and writing down the stuff that's going to gravitate towards you. I understand all that, but I actually think it's all there if you open. That's the key. You got to open up. And it's the hardest thing.
Yeah. So often manifestation comes from hard work in the beginning, because really for me, I feel like manifestation is a goal that you've created. This is what I would like. And then you work towards that. And you're like, oh, I manifested it. In reality, you're working hard toward this thing. And like you said, opening yourself up and seeing the world as if you were a newborn, and seeing your art as if you were a newborn, and learning from that.
It's also, though, understanding that we're going really off topic here, but
We do that all the time, don't worry.
it's understanding that it's possible for you and you're worthy of it. So I do a gratitude journal in the mornings, and when you first write down the things that you're grateful for, so there's this concept that things that you have, or the things that you may have, or the things that you've lost, the universe doesn't understand the difference of that. You're just grateful. So whether you're grateful for your cup of coffee in the morning or grateful for the millions of dollars that you hope may come to your bank account, it's actually the same. The mindset of it is the same, but we separate it because of worthiness. So there's a disconnect. You can be grateful for your coffee. It's tangible. It's in front of you. You can afford it. You're not grateful for the millions of dollars so much because you don't understand how that's going to come to you. And then you're like, so the first time you write it, you're like, oh, I don't know about that. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But over time, you get so used to seeing those words on the page that it becomes just part of your
mindset.
Why shouldn't I have it? Rather than that's going to be hard for me.
Yeah.
And so the more you understand that you're worthy of all that stuff, the more you open up and it comes to you. It's kind of this weird, it's such a simple thing. It's the same thing. So I've studied martial arts, and it's the same thing in martial arts. If you don't let go, you're going to get hurt. The moment you're tight, that's when you get hurt. If you let go and just relax, everything else is in slow motion. And it's kind of the same thing. We have a phrase in martial arts, the mind goes where the tension is. It's the same in life. If you're worried about your mortgage, or you're worried about your relationship, or worried about whatever, your health, that's where your mind is fixated to.
Yeah.
You kind of distract yourself from what's actually open, what's possible for you.
Yeah. Self-sabotage.
Yeah. So I love that, working on myself in that respect. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, all works in progress.
Which TikTok taught me. I don't know. I think in terms of creating something and achieving something, you've really got to dig deep and ask yourself not what you want to achieve, but why you want to achieve it. That's the recipe. Because once you know why, you can attract that stuff much quicker.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love talking about this stuff all the time. Yeah.
Me too. I have to stop myself because I could yak on it.
Yeah, I do it on the podcast as well. I oftentimes go off on advice tangents.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I love this stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. What an incredible discussion, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was such a pleasure.
As we say, we love to unpick the creativity, because these shows don't just appear by magic. They look beautiful and everything like that, but it takes an incredible amount of creativity and work. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to sort of share that with our listeners, who I know will be so excited to have you and to have heard all of that.
They haven't zoned out from me talking about this.
No, they will absolutely love it.
I thought this was a Bridgerton podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we'll chuck a bit at the end about Colin and Penelope. We'll be fine, don't you worry.
Yeah.
Well, we'll tie it in somehow.
Yeah. Let go of everything except for Colin with the balloon. There we go. There's your tie-in.
Yeah. Perfect. Let go, yeah.
We will include all of the links in the show notes about where you can keep up to date with Archer Marsh, and all those books that you recommended as well. We will definitely add those if you want to sort of dig into those. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been fun to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm joined again by our lovely Lecky. Now, Lecky, sadly, you couldn't join us for the interview itself, but I know you were super excited to see what we talked about.
Yeah, I was so interested in the advice he shared with us and his comments about creativity and about needing to let go of your own insecurities and kind of your expectations about what you're going to get back from your own creative works. Because we kind of see that play out in season 3 with Colin.
Yeah, it's so resonant.
Because if you remember in 306, he regains his inspiration after suffering from a brief bout of writer's block when he's able to let go of his own insecurities. And then they kind of come roaring back when he becomes aware of Penelope's Lady Whistledown identity, and he starts comparing his success to hers.
I mean, one of the things that I love so much about Pen and Colin, there's so much, but one thing I've always been drawn to them about is that they are both creatives themselves. They're both writers. And it's such a foundational part of their connection, even before they're together in season 3. As we saw, their letters end up being this really foundational part of their relationship that draws them closer throughout all stages of their relationship. And so I think so much about what Archer Marsh shared in the interview really resonates with their story as well. And it's like you say with Colin, the journey he goes on in season 3, throughout both part 1 and part 2, it's a lot to do with the expectation that you feel by society. And so part 1 deals with that really heavily. So he's really trapped by expectation from peers and society that then sort of bleeds into how he views himself. And he really struggles with that. But I think what we discussed about the importance of authenticity and about understanding what motivates you and being true to that really resonates with the journey that we saw. So we saw in part 1 where he turns away from the expectations placed by others and follows his heart. It's, you know, it's the head versus the heart. And he finds that really freeing. And then, as you say, in part 2, he has the journey with his creativity where he gains confidence and then compares his success elsewhere and struggles with it. And then again, it's a journey of him being true to himself and also surrounding himself by people who believe in him and see him. And I think that's true of Pen as well. Pen sticking to her creative guns is such an important theme.
Yeah.
But finding a way, asking what does she want to achieve through her writing, and then finding that healthy reconciliation for her work.
A balance, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it resonates so beautifully. I know that a lot of our listeners are creatives, whether that's music, whether that's film. I know there are so many writers in the fandom itself. So I really feel like there's so much we can all take from that. Thank you again to Archer Marsh. We were so thrilled to have you on the pod. And Lecky, where can everyone keep up to date with Archer Marsh's next projects? I think there's a few things going on already.
You can keep up to date with Archer Marsh on Instagram and TikTok at Archer_Marsh. He also has a cover of Alice Cooper's School's Out, titled School's Out for Summer, which was released yesterday, Friday, July 12th. So you can go stream that now. And you can also find his album Sequins, featuring the full and stripped down versions of Give Me Everything, Lights, and Confident on all music streaming platforms. Of course, they can also be found on the season 3 soundtrack, which is also available now and is available on pre-order for vinyl.
Is that due out in September? You should know, you've already placed an order for me today.
Yes, I think it is September 27th. It's available for pre-order, late September.
So there are different editions of the soundtrack. We don't know if any more are going to be released, but at the moment the standard edition is adorably named the Wedding Ring Gold Edition after Polin's wedding. But there is an exclusive Barnes & Noble edition that is available to pre-order, which is called the Colin's Blue Eyes Edition.
Remarkable. Astonishing.
And you can bet your bottom dollar that I have forced Lecky to pre-order that for me and then ship it across the sea, because there is no world I will live in where I do not have a vinyl that's based on Colin's Blue Eyes.
She needs to invest in a record player in between now and late September, but...
Yeah, details.
Details, yeah.
So once again, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. As we said in our last episode, we're in a little bit of a summer break before we delve into our proper season 3 rewatch. So our next few episodes, I think slightly more than we intended, Lek.
Yeah, always.
Will be season 3 Q&As. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. We had so many good ones, so many so that...
we may be extending the Q&A.
We hope you like a good old Q&A because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them over summer. So the first part of our Q&A will be with you
in the coming weeks.
Let's bring back that old chestnut. In the meantime, as we edit away, Lecky, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And Veg isn't here. Could you do Veg's part for us?
Yes. If you listen to podcasts, you can find us on all podcast platforms. And if you like watching your podcasts and if you like Beans' lovely collages, you can also find us on YouTube.
And there's nothing else for it but for Beans to sing us out.
Before we exit the episode, we had another thought. We just wanted to say, if you're listening to our podcast for the first time and you've listened to this interview, Beans has mentioned a few times that she works in the music industry. She's actually a very talented singer, so we thought we should hop back on and just... explain that before you hear our silly outro that we made her record for our podcast.
This is not reflective of Beans' work in the music industry. Just her work here at What a Barb, a Polin podcast.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-dee-doo-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo, brr, brr, brr. Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. A Polin podcast.